be the next president? Who will the Filipino people choose to lead the nation in the next 6 years? Get to know the presidential candidates for the upcoming elections. Hear their solutions and programs to the country's pressing issues. Live from Okada, Manila, Sunshine Media Network International, in partnership with ALV Events International and the Manila Times, bring you the Deep Probe, the SMNI Presidential Candidates Interview, with SMNI Debates moderator, attorney Karen Emano, and veteran panelist, UP political scientist, Professor Clarita Carlos, former Iloilo Vice Governor and Congressman, attorney Rolex Suplico, teacher, International Relations and International Diplomatic and Subjects, Rogando Sason, and the Manila Times Chairman and CEO, Dante Clink Ang II, live on March 26, 2 p.m. on SMNI. Sunshine Media Network International brings you the Deep Probe, the SMNI Presidential Candidates Interview. Live from Okada, Manila, the best integrated resort in the Philippines.
The Deep Probe, the SMNI Presidential Candidates Interview. Kilalanin natin ang susunod na presidential candidate na tutugon sa tanong ng ating mga panelists.
Isang doktor, abogado, ekonomista, manunulat, at ebanghelista. Sa kanyang pagsabak ngayon sa politika, tangan-tangan niya ang isang makadiyos na pamamahala. Iba't ibang reforma ang kanyang isusulong para sa isang maunlad na Pilipinas. Tumatakbo bilang Pangulo mula sa Democratic Party of the Philippines. Dr. Attorney Jose Montemayor Jr.
And welcome Dr. Attorney Jose Montemayor. You may now sit down. And at this point, you may freely interact with our panelists.
Hi, good afternoon, Dr. Montemayor. I got to know Dr. Montemayor a little bit better at lunchtime. We were having lunch together. Thank you for what you have shared with me. I didn't know that you are a cardiologist, a renowned cardiologist, and you have written about 200 books on medical subject areas. Is that correct?
Well, hindi lang po medicine, but also law, criminology, economics, and business administration.
Yes, thank you so much. So, a very prolific writer, a man after my heart. What I'd like to probe deeper, Dr. Montemayor, is the position you have taken, undoubtedly a minority position, in regard to vaccination. Is it correct that a case has been filed in regard to questioning the mandatory vaccination policy of the government?
Yes, opo, not only the mandatory aspect of vaccination, but also the other effects like no vax, no right policy. It is not actually the health or medical aspect that I'm questioning, but the mandatory provision, forcing people to take this experimental therapy or vaccination.
So, there are two aspects there. The mandatory part is making it compulsory for everyone to take the job, right? But the science part, are you saying you are not supportive of the science part when you are a medical scientist yourself?
Well, yes. Actually, I am also a researcher. In fact, two major companies that are backing up vaccines, and the companies are actually in the vaccine business. I did some cardiology trials before with these two companies. What I am questioning is that you cannot do mandatory vaccination to a particular drug or therapy, which is still in the experimental stage. So in that case, the trials haven't been finished yet. It is still the stage 2 and stage 3. And yet, the government is forcing people to take these vaccines. Well, some other lawyers in the government, they said that they are not explicitly saying that it is mandatory. But then the requirement of vaccination cards is sufficient to call it mandatory because people cannot go to work, people cannot resume education or their schoolwork without vaccination cards. That makes it mandatory.
Dr. Montemayor, I just want to understand the principle. You know? So, if there is a natural calamity and some people are refusing to be evacuated, would you say that allow them to remain because it's their freedom to perish in the natural calamity? Is that it? I mean, I'm trying to draw parallels here.
Well, it is very hard to make that analogous with each other because one with the physical danger like storm or typhoon, it cannot be equated with one wherein you receive in your body an experimental one. Unlike in a physical calamity where people, they see the danger, but the vaccination part, you see, driving a particular therapy inside your body is a different thing. So I don't think there is any analogy with that. Yes.
What's your position on ivermectin, which has, I think, captured the imagination of some people despite the lack of medical data to support its efficacy?
Well, there is no empirical data on ivermectin. These are only anecdotal. From the very start, I refused that kind of blind treatment. No, I did not accept that.
You're not in favor of it?
It is very hard to say you are in favor or not in favor because it did not undergo any trial.
Because the manufacturer, I'm sure you're familiar with Merck, the manufacturer of ivermectin. They released a statement February last year. It's a long statement, but if you'd allow me to just read one sentence in that statement. It says that to date, the analysis has identified no scientific basis for potential therapeutic effect against COVID-19 from preclinical studies, no meaningful evidence for clinical activity or clinical efficacy in patients with COVID-19 disease, and a concerning lack of safety data in the majority of studies. I would think that anyone has an economic interest to push this, right? It would be the manufacturer, but the manufacturer itself is warning against it.
Yes, that is why I am against. But I told people that if you have a galis, and if you are a dog or a cat, you can take that. Because I am also unknown to many. I am also a virologist. Before I became a cardiologist, I topped the boards in virology. I got 99 in the medical boards. Now, if some of the congressmen that they are pushing this, I think they have galis. That's why they are taking ivermectin. People who have this, we are pushing ivermectin to those to the animals. Sabi ko sa kanila, even if you like a horse or kahit kamukha mo ang pusa, aso o kabayo, sabi ko, you cannot take that because you are still a man. So, yung except kahit yung mga congressmen natin na mukhang kabayo, aso, pusa, siguro po, at nakita ko naman kamukha nila, no? Sabi ko sa kanila, kasi ako liaison officer ng Philippine Medical Association, I am also the legal officer. Sabi ko, it is very hard to push a particular medicine or a therapeutic one only analogous to a particular, no? Because even in legal medicine, you don't apply legal medicine to, of course, you can apply legal medicine to all, not only medical but paramedical sciences, except I told the students that veterinary medicine is not part of legal medicine. Even though you look like a horse, no? And many congressmen they look like horses.
Dr. Montemayor, magtungo na tayo dito sa sinasabi niyong 10-point agenda. I think ang nakapagkuha ng aking atensyon dito is yung number 10. Sabi niyo is Philippines 2030, a Christ-centered government, a stable and strong government covenant to honor God and care for every Filipino. Ngayon po, ang tanong ko po, sir, ganito. Ang Pilipinas po ay meron pong plurality of religion. Hindi lang po Christianity ang relihiyon sa ating bansa. At ang ikalawa po ay ang ating pong estado ay secular, informed. So, papaano nyo po, kung kayo'y maging presidente, papaano nyo po babalansihin ang inyo pong agenda na ang ating bansa, ang ating gobyerno ay maging Christ-centered, while at the same time, may mga iba po tayong religious groups na hindi naman po si Kristo ang kanilang pinaniniwalaan. At ang ikalawa po ay paano nyo po ibabalansihin ang inyong advokasya na isang gobyernong may covenant to honor God, while at the same time ang ating pong estado ay isang secular na estado.
Okay, hindi po totoo yan, alam niyo. Palaging kagabi lang tinanong din ako, sa Channel 5, paano mo ipupus? Talagang ipupus ko po. Sabi ng salita ng Diyos, if God is for us, who can be against us? At sinabi niya, for without me, you can do nothing. But with God, nothing is impossible. Alam niyo po, that's why on my first week as President, I will call for national repentance. Kasi minura ng ating Presidente ang Diyos. No? Dapat mamahalin ang Diyos, hindi mumurahin. So, pangalawa, alam niyo po, whether Christian ka, whether Muslim ka, o ano pa mang religion mo, the center of religion actually is love. And even if you are atheist, there is a vacuum within you. There is a vacuum within you that only love can fill. And love, actually God is love. So I don't think there is any problem with that. Considering that the center of religion is love. And when we say Christ, Even the Muslims, they have Christ, Yeshua, and also the Jews, the Christians. And when I say Christ-centered public administration, one that is centered in love, not hate. So in that kind of consideration, we can say that it's more important for us to be united in love than the present condition that we have. We are separate with each other by color, in whatever persuasion we have. So with that, there is no problem with me pushing for a Christ-centered leadership and administration.
Magandang hapon po, Dr. Attorney Montemayor. Nalilito ako kung tawagin kayo panyero o doktor na lang eh. But anyway po, nakita ko yung biodata nyo at ako naman saludo sa biodata nyo. No? At sinabi nyo kanina ng tanghali, sabay tayo kumain, na may hearing pa kayo sa Korte Suprema. Mag-argue po kayo doon. No? Dito po sa petition na pinaakyat nyo para pigilin ang mandatory vaccination. Ngayon po, alam natin no, ng FDA ay nagbibigay ng phase 3 trials at kung successful ay ma-issuehan ka ng CPR, Certificate of Product Registration. Subalit itong mga bakuna ito hindi umabot sa phase 3. EUA lamang. Ito po ay Emergency Use Authorization. Yung bang posisyon nyo dahil walang phase 3 trial, dapat hindi muna ibabakuna sa atin kasi hindi natin alam ang epekto ng long term ng mga bakunang ito? Or ang posisyon nyo ba ay talaga namang freedom of choice whether or not merong phase 3 trials? Pwede mo ba pa-explain ka po?
Okay. Yung pong pagiging doktor ko, siyempre, alam niyo po, ang vaccination is part of our health system. Pero yung making that mandatory, the government oversteps its position. Making it mandatory of course, will sacrifice our freedoms. People who do not want to be vaccinated will now be vaccinated because it is part of the requirement. Now, kaya po yung nagkakamatayan no, sa hospital, dyan sa sinasabing choice na yan. Kahit yung mga bypass, angioplasty, sabi ko sa mga cardiologists, huwag niyong ipipilit ang isang bagay na ayaw ng pasyente. Alam nyo, yung health consideration, there's no problem with that. But the mandatory aspect, you are now overstepping the legal aspect. Freedom of choice, yung freedom to be treated or not, the informed consent aspect, nawawala na po. No? Kasi ang informed consent, baka hindi alam ng ating gobyerno, it is not only the freedom to choose or to be treated, but also not to be treated. The informed consent not only considers the point wherein you have this kind of treatment. For example po, alam niyo po, kailangan po kayong ma-bypass. Alam niyo po, ang pasyente, maraming dahilan. Ayoko po dahil natatakot ako. Ayoko po dahil wala po akong pera. Ayoko po dahil... May mga tao, kahit may pera sila, ayaw nila. Now, when the choice of the doctor and the choice of the patient, magbabanggaan yan. At pinilit mo pa rin. Naobserbahan ko po, no, yung karamihan ng operation, namamatay yung pasyente after the operation, it is because of forcing that particular treatment to a patient who resists it. So, hindi lang po yung healthcare aspect, pati yung experimentation aspect dahil hanggang stage 3 pa lang. Ano? At actually, yung stage 3 pa lang, napakarami nang namatay. At marami na rin ng mga nagkaroon ng side effects.
Ito po, Doktor, no, bilang isang abogado na this time, ito yung katanungan ko. No? Kung may masamang mangyari sa pasyente, meron ba siyang cause of action o karapatan sumampa ng isang kaso laban doon sa opisyal na pumilit sa kanya magbakuna?
Wala po. No? When WHO issues a particular classification which is called EUL, no? Experimental Use Listing. When any particular drug, vaccine, or even equipments, pag nakategorize siyang EUL, pagkatapos nag-sign ka doon, meaning any side effect, mamatay ka, maparalyze ka, anything that will happen to you, they are not answerable.
May waiver.
Well, ang waiver kasi, it's a very soft term. Ano? Alam niyo po, ang waiver, it is not effective as far as our Philippine laws because future rights cannot be waived, including the right to file a case. So, waiver is a soft term, but the international guideline on health, no, Mexico Protocol, states that in a particular drug, that is, hindi nyo po alam na ang ating mga prisons, they are part of international experimentation. Whenever a particular heart drug, yung mga iniinom yung mga gamot ngayon, ininom muna ng mga nakapreso. No? At kung may mamatay doon o walang mamatay o konti lang namatay, those are being recorded in the United States and Europe. Now, karamihan ng mga iniinom niyo yan sa diabetes, na-experiment muna sa mga kulungan natin. No? And the Philippines is one of the guinea pigs of the world. No? So, napakahirap po kung hindi lang sa ating mga prison, pati sa inyo na, no? Binabakuna na sa inyo, no? Vaccination. Well, we cannot even file a case. Alam niyo po, dati, every week ako nagpa-file ng case laban sa mga doktor, hospital, no? PRC, administrative, criminal. Pero ngayon, di ka pwedeng mag-file. Why? Because these vaccines are part and categorized as EUL. And whenever a particular drug, equipment, research is classified as EUL, then you cannot file damages.
Well, I hate to interrupt because this is a very interesting discussion on vaccines, but unfortunately we need some time right now for a short break. So don't leave everyone. We'll be back on the Deep Probe SMNI presidential interviews. The Deep Probe, the SMNI presidential interviews. And right now, we're still getting to know better our candidate for today, attorney and Dr. Jose Montemayor. And to get to know him further, our panelists will continue to ask him questions.
Well, I shall pursue, if I may, may shoot the first question after the first break. I would like to follow through your position in regard to increasing money supply by means of the ayuda, Dr. Montemayor. And the empirical evidence suggests to us that if you keep on giving ayuda to the deserving recipients, at a later time, you are going to engender learned helplessness. How do you deal with this?
Well, when I say that, well, there are two things that, for us to recover, the fiscal policy and also the monetary policy. Monetary policy, you increase the money supply, but you only do that in the short term. You see, we are still in the pandemic, and even with post-pandemic, we have to help every person. The MSMEs, more than 50% or 500,000 companies, some are permanently, some are temporarily stopped. They need budget to, to stimulate the economy. The people who are seriously and severely affected, they should be given assistance. But I emphasize in many interviews that this is only for the short term. We have to create jobs. We have to create employment. In order, we will be ready in the long haul. Now, I said that we have to increase for the meantime the money supply because there is a very much need for our economy to be stimulated. Not necessarily we will go into quantitative easing because the increase in money supply will also create big impact as far as inflation is concerned. But the thing is, we are still in the pandemic stage where the stimulation of economy very much needs this the money that is circulating in our system.
Dr. Montemayor, let me just have a follow-up questions. Kasi ang sabi niyo po, ang monetary policy ninyo na mag-increase ng money supply will only be for the short term. Pero itong pagbibigay ng ayuda, this is dependent on the duration of the pandemic. So how can you make it short term? Yung ayuda, dependent ito kung gaano tatagal yung pandemic.
Well, yes. Alam niyo po, we are on the. I am an optimist. I am very much optimistic about our condition. We are in alert one, but we have to be aggressive in our preventive aspect. No? It is very hard. There is to conclude that only this pandemic contributed. That even before the pandemic, we are already suffering. Now, what I am saying is that just to stimulate the economy, we need this kind of assistance. And if people can now be independent on their own, for example, the MSMEs will already be revived in the near future, there is no need for them to depend or to become parasite with the money of the government. And we have to create, we have to provoke, stimulate also small businesses in order for the people not to depend too much on government's dole-outs. So, yun po, no, short term lang naman, but we really have to help them. No? All over the world, no, ganyan ang ginagawa ngayon because that is, tandaan po natin, for the economy to be revived, there are three things that are important. Number one is credit. No? The access to money, the discount windows are very important also for small, medium enterprises. And for productivity to be increased as well as growth, you need access to credit. So with credit, we mean not only money, but the openness, the availability, the access to revive our economy.
Dr. Montemayor, we took economics classes together at UST. It's good to see you again, sir. You know very well, when you talk about monetary policy, that's the responsibility of the central bank. I hope that you're not implying that as president, who's in charge of the fiscal policy, that you will interfere with monetary policy of the central bank. That's not what you're saying, I hope, right?
Well, that is not. No. But we have also, as President of the Republic, you have to balance the monetary and the fiscal aspect. No? Fiscal aspect, spending, and also taxation. But taxation, the taxation aspect, we have already the train law in place. Except, of course, I will take probably a job at the excise tax in gasoline prices, oil prices, and also to initiate efforts at Congress to revert back the credit law, which is very damaging. You see, we are. It is very hard for us to give 230 billion of ayuda to our poor people. But the government is too liberal, giving 350 billion pesos of discounts to big corporations. Foreign corporation, 30% to 25%. 5% is too big. And also 25% to 20% to domestic corporations. And all in all, there is a discount of 450 billion in my computation. You see, the government is not aligned with that economic. I don't know if the economists of the government are studying this, but we lost so much in this great law. About train law, I think the only problem is the VAT on oil.
So you probably noticed toward the end of 2021, when the cases were declining and the economy was reopening ahead of the Christmas season, there was a big surge in GDP growth in the last quarter of last year. So wouldn't that, would you say, give a better argument than what you are proposing, which is ayuda and maybe suspending the excise tax? Wouldn't it be better for the government to simply step back, reopen the economy, and let the market do its magic?
Well, the comparison is not actually equal. On the third quarter of 2021, well, it is true that it is 16.6%. As when you compare it with the third quarter of 2020, the start of pandemic, the impact of pandemic, which is in the negative territory. Now, if you will compute even the 16.6% with that of the pre-pandemic level, we are still in the negative territory of minus 4.4. So, that one quarter will not speak of the overall recovery of the government. All governments are recovering naturally because the COVID infection is declining. But you see, the behavior of these viruses is different. For example, we relax too much on the decline of Delta, and yet there arose again another mutation, the Omicron virus, very contagious, even though it is not that serious. So the impact on the economy is too severe. That it may result in what we call the U type of recovery, or the L type, which is very damaging. It causes really structural damage as far as our economy is concerned.
Could you talk about your public health policy? I mean, you're the only candidate with, at least the one running for president, with a medical background. You know, let's focus on fiscal policy. With regard to public health infrastructure development, what do you plan to do?
Yes, especially now, we have COVID, we have a lot of mutation. You know, the behavior of this virus is unpredictable. Now, what we will emphasize is not the reactive portion, test, trace, and treat. No, we are through with that. We will now go on the preventive aspect. We have to build the immunity of our people, information dissemination, more vitamins, nutritious food. We have to go. Otherwise, we will be in the pandemonium and also on the phenomenology of China, South Korea, and Hong Kong. They relax too much. Now you are seeing millions of cases in China, 150,000 every day of COVID cases in South Korea, and 50,000 every day in Hong Kong. So because they relaxed, they took it upon themselves that this is just a very ordinary virus. No, we are dealing with an unknown enemy that until now we just know 10% of the nature. Now, in our economic approach to this pandemic, we have to be on the preventive aspect. What are we going to do to build the immunity of our people other than these vaccines, which are still in the experimental stage? Now, we can do a lot of things on the preventive aspect. Now, after not only on the preventive aspect but also on the mitigation aspect, we have to, now that we are on alert one, this is the golden time for us to increase our budget as far as salaries of nurses, salaries of doctors. Our hospitals we have to improve, be aggressive in giving all the necessary support to our health personnel. Now, we should be on the proactive side in public health care because public health care is not only affecting the health care of our people, but also the overall situation, like our economy, the way we work, and all the aspects, even the way we do our worship is affected.
Okay, good afternoon, Doctor. You stated that you will support the Duterte's administration build program, and then you want to inject money into the money supply through the ayuda. Now, where will you get the funding for this?
Very easy po, no? Actually, yung big items project, tinanong nga ako dun sa CNN debate, saka Comelec debate, will you push for... Well, we cannot do anything much more. Why? Because sanctity of contracts, inviolability of contracts. Nakakontrata tayo dyan 10 years, 20 years, bilateral, multilateral treaties. Now, what I am saying is that we have to push through with those good projects, all those big item projects, because we are tied up with the contracts. Now, what we will screen, what we will restrict is the corruption side. There's a corruption in everything. Now, alam niyo po, no, kinompute ko, no, I told Senator Ping-Lacson, who is an independent already. Okay, sinabi ko sa kanya, ang COA, 700 billion. Actually, ang ninanakaw ng mga LGUs natin, congressmen, governor, lahat po yan, ang ninanakaw nila is 1.3 trillion. Computing the R side and also the beta aspect of the infrastructure project. Meaning, not only 700 billion ang ninanakaw nila, but 1.3 trillion. Now, alam niyo po yung 1.3 trillion, ibibigay natin sa ayuda 250 billion. 250 billion sa healthcare natin. At yung excess natin, pang emergency natin, sa mga contingency measures na pwede natin ibigay. Alam niyo po, i-restrict lang natin, wag na muna tayo mang-utang. 2 trillion ang inutang ni President Duterte, kaya naging 12 trillion tayo ngayon. 2 trillion, pag tinanong mo siya, nasaan? Wala na. So, saan napunta? So, makita mo, face shield, 67 billion at nag-e-expire daw yung plastic. Saan ka makakakita? 67 billion ninakaw.
So sa iyo pong administrasyon, hindi kayo uutang. Hindi nyo dadagan ang utang ng Republika ng Pilipinas na noong January 2022 ay nasa 12.03 trillion pesos.
Alam niyo po, tama na muna tayo. Kukunin natin yung mga ninakaw. At saka yung mga land grabber dyan. Mga land grabber, ibenta natin yung mga ninakaw din nila. Alam niyo po, maraming bagay, no? Maraming bagay na hindi naman kailangang utang tayo ng utang. Sinabi mismo sa Bible, owe no one. Ano ibig sabihin yan? Tama na muna tayo, no? Sa magkakautang. Yung may mga pera pa naman tayo. Be self-sufficient, food security, agriculture. Huwag na muna tayong, pag merong uutang tayo at mag-uutang tayo para mabayaran yung utang. Utang na naman tayo. Hindi pwede, we cannot exist. We cannot exist. At saka we cannot defend our territory, sovereignty. Pag puro utang tayo, for example, China, kaya nagkakaproblema ang mga African nations, alam natin, saka ang Southeast Asian nations, kaya nagkakaproblema sa kanilang bansa dahil sa sobrang utang sa China. So, they already mortgage the future of their children. Now, let us put a stop with that kind of attitude na for us to survive, utang na naman. Mang-uutang tayo para bayaran ng utang.
Doktor, kung baka sakaling magpresidente kayo, papayagan niyo pa ba ang pork barrel system or yung kanyang mutation? Kasi nag-mutate din ito no? Papayag ba kayo na ang kongresista at ang senadores, no, ay magdidip tong fingers nila dito sa budget. According kay Secretary Belica, 10 to 15% advance payment daw eh. Pahig ba kayo nun?
Siyempre po hindi, ano? Vicious cycle yan. Ano? Kaya maraming yung dynasty. Alam niyo, pag tinanggal mo yung pork barrel, siguro ako na lang ang tatakbo sa buong Pilipinas eh. Na senador, congress. Kasi wala nang tatakbo.
Ibig niyo po sabihin yung ibang politiko tumatakbo sa politika dahil may pork barrel.
Hindi ibang politiko. Actually, lahat ng politiko, except ako, ano? Except lahat ng politiko, magnanakaw lahat yan. Kasi, why? Kasi ang nakikita nila, magkano ang tinatanggap, 70 million, ordinary pa lang yan sa mga congressmen, 200 million sa mga senators. Tanggalin niyo yung pork barrel, walang pera, walang sweldo, ako na lang po tatakbo. Hindi na tatakbo yan. Pati yung mga senators, hindi na tatakbo. Bakit? Wala nang pera eh. Money is the driving point for all of these politicians.
Sir, my question now is foreign policy. Kasi kung kayo ay maging presidente, kayo ang magiging chief architect ng ating foreign policy. Sa inyong 10-point agenda, meron kayo ditong binanggit na holistic approach on West Philippine Sea. Anong ibig sabihin nyo ng holistic approach?
Well, ang holistic approach, for example, yung holistic approach, wag lang yung nakasenter sa pera. For example, I will cut our diplomatic relation with China. Alam niyo po, alam niyo ba?
Sir, let me clarify. You will cut our diplomatic relations with China.
Correct. Upon assumption in the first week. Alam niyo kung ba, 241 protest na tayo laban sa incursion ng China. Kung talagang kaibigan mo, kung talagang partner mo, lolokohin ka ba ng ganyan? Gusto mo ba lolokohin ka? Siyempre hindi. They are not taking us seriously. Itong si Secretary Locsin at Secretary Lorenzana, pinagtatawanan lang ni Xi Jinping, no? Alam nyo, pag kinat natin ang diplomatic relations, now, they will listen.
Sir, why do you think that China will listen if we cut their diplomatic relations with them when in terms of trade, mas dependent tayo sa China rather than the other way around? For example, sir, let me give you an example. Noong Scarborough Shoal standoff, ang China hindi lang it imposed some soft sanction on our banana industry, and our banana industry actually floundered. So what can you just imagine, sir, the risk of cutting off diplomatic relationship with China?
Alam niyo po, no, hindi tayo nag-exist for China. This is a question of opportunity cost. Kung hindi kukuha ang China, marami pang kukuha. Japan, for example, well, depende, i-expand natin ang ating economic policy. Ano? Alam niyo po, pag ang isang tao, complain tayo ng complain, tapos pinagtatawanan lang tayo, alam niyo po, the best thing to do is to cut. We mean serious business. Hindi pwede yan. We can go with other countries. We can join other agreements, no? Other security agreements, economic agreements. We can expand that. Tandaan nyo, we do not exist as Filipinos in order to be parasite with China. No. Tandaan nyo po, kaya nga tinawag na international trade, globalization. Because we are not only dependent on China, we can depend on other countries like the middle powers, Australia, Japan, we have India. We can be friends with other nations. Kagaya ng sa Amerika, no? Alam niyo, matagal na tayo niloloko rin ng Amerika, no? Mutual Defense Treaty, EDCA, BFA. Alam niyo po, tinuturo ko rin sa law school yan, ano? Tinuturo ko rin sa Master of Law. Alam niyo, matagal na tayo niloloko. Pagpasok pa lang ng mga inchik dito, wala, dead ma lang naman sila eh. No? But it does not necessarily mean na magiging kalaban natin. No. We have to be friends with other nations, not only economically but also militarily. We will be friends with many other countries like Australia, India also, US. We have to expand our friendship, our relations with other countries. That is the holistic approach. Not only China, not only U.S., but other countries as well.
Well, this is a monumental statement that you have made to propose to cut off diplomatic relations with China. Does this mean that we shall continue to be the tail of the American kite?
No, not necessarily. Alam niyo po, unang-una, cutting diplomatic relations does not necessarily mean war. Second, hindi naman ibig sabihin na pupunta tayo sa Amerika. We can stand on our own, but we can be friends. For example, security arrangement with AUKUS, with Quad, with we can strengthen our relation with the ASEAN. We will no longer be on the economic side of the ASEAN, but also militarily.
Sir, if we cut off diplomatic relations with China, it is a step closer to war, because when diplomats stop talking, then you have to start preparing your army for war. And then, as you mentioned here, sir, you're mentioning military solution already. You said that with ASEAN, we will forge military relationship with them. You mentioned another military arrangement, which is Quad. So, are you now, because for you, we have to cut off diplomatic relations. So, during your term, is our main approach towards China will be governed by the military solution?
Well, not necessarily. When you cut, because we have already 241 protests against China, and yet they do not want to hear from us all those protests. They are just laughing at our back. Now, what I am saying is that cutting diplomatic relations will not automatically. We are not automatically saying to them that we are at war. No, there are a lot of countries in the whole world where we do not have any relation. That does not necessarily mean that we are declaring war with them.
But sir, that's different from cutting an existing diplomatic relationship and, establishing a new one.
Yeah, further to that, Sas, no? Whenever we visit Moscow, always there is, repeatedly, they declare that they also want to pivot to Asia. But they're not quite as blatant as the U.S. declaring so without any beef. Okay, and I think, Dr. Montemayor, you heard my question to Calyodi earlier about the news that Vladimir Putin will have a state visit here in the country. So, does that mean that if you propose cutting diplomatic relations with China, that you are open to engaging Russia's pivot to Asia, or particularly to us, especially since it wants a status of forces agreement with us to train with our military?
Well, I haven't heard about that. But if that is the case, I will not only entertain Russia, but all countries who want to have relations with us. And cutting our diplomatic relations will not necessarily during my administration not to resume it again, not to continue it again. No? Well, we want them to listen to us. Meaning, if you will cut it now, maybe after 6 months we can begin again another diplomatic rounds with them. So, meaning, this is a continuing relation. Foreign relations is not only, remember that Japan and the United States, they are enemies in World War II. And yet they are best of friends now. So there is no permanency, there is no permanency in being opposite, on the opposite ends.
Sir, if we cut diplomatic relations with China, meron tayong mga OFW sa China. So sino ang kanilang pupuntahan kung sasarado natin ang ating embahada sa China?
Well, sinabi ko nga po, temporary lang. Alam nyo, wala naman tayong embahada sa Taiwan, pero marami rin tayong OFW doon. So, anong ibig sabihin na? Hindi naman ibig sabihin na ang embassy nag-exist for our people. Actually, nag-exist ang embassy. That is a structural relationship. Now, merong mga OFW na wala naman tayong embassy. Di po ba? Maraming bansa sa buong mundo na wala namang embassy ang Pilipinas, pero may OFW. So if that can happen to other countries, why why not in China? So, wag naman po kayong mag-aalala, yung mga nagmamahal, yung mga China file, ano? Wag naman kayong masaktan, no? Alam niyo po, mahal din natin ang China. Pero ang tunay na pagmamahalan, walang halong kalokohan.
Okay, Doktor, sana lang Alam mo, noong January 29 to February 1, 2022, itong taon, itong barko, warship ng China with number 792, naglinger sa Sulu Sea. At pinaalis ito, challenge ng BRP Antonio Luna. Kung kayo po ay presidente, President Montemayor, what would you do?
Alam niyo po, Kapampangan ako, no? Maya pabengi po ko rin Kapampangan. Alam niyo po, Kapampangan ako, pag meron pumasok ka sa territory namin, we will start assuring ba? Kasi pumunta ka sa aming teritoryo. No?
It's a shooting war.
Well, hindi naman ako magde-declare no, pero lahat ng incursion na nandun, siyempre papatayin natin. Kasi pupunta ka sa aming lugar, no, na bawal naman. Kahit tayo pupunta tayo ng walang pasabi sa kanila, necessarily, kaya nangyari sa yung Vietnam at saka China, nagpatayan sila because of the incursion in their territory. So if that will happen in my sa time ko po, kung loloobin ng Panginoon na ako yung maging presidente, well, I will not hesitate na ako mismo ang babaril.
I congratulate you for such bold declaration. I hope China is listening. China, please listen.
Pero sir, ganito maganda binanggit mo yan, Attorney Rex Suplico, yung incursion ng Chinese warship dyan sa Sulu Sea. And I think ang lingid sa ating kaalaman, the United States, part of its FONOPS or Freedom of Navigation Operations, kasama dyan ay ang pag-challenge ng ating claim sa Sulu Sea as part of our internal water, as part of archipelagic waters. So meaning, hindi lang talaga China yung pumupunta dyan, yung hindi nagsasend ng warship dyan, kundi United States din. They send their navies in a lot of maritime areas in order to challenge what the United States say as excessive maritime claims. So, kung yung nakita ninyo ay US Navy warship dyan sa Sulu Sea, will you also start a shooting war?
Well, iba po yan. Alam niyo po, meron tayong Mutual Defense Treaty, meron tayong Visiting Forces Agreement, meron tayong EDCA. We cannot compare the two. Tandaan nyo, ang mga Amerikano may bases before. No? And kahit na wala na silang physical bases, we have a continuing relationship with them. Not only economically, but also militarily. Now, we cannot say the same with that of China. No? Tandaan natin, ang China, ang pagkita ng marami, kaaway natin. We have to admit that we are in an informal battle with territorial claims. No? Ngayon, kaya hindi natin pwedeng masita ang Amerika. Ang mga Amerikano kasama natin ng World War II. Ang mga Amerikano kasama natin sa iba-ibang bagay. Nakaka-apekto pa rin sa atin yung ganon. Ang pagtingin natin sa kanila ay kaibigan pa rin. 6 million Filipinos are in the United States. Tandaan natin, no? Pero ang sinasabi ko, ang mga, tingnan nyo po, ang mga Pilipino ba, pag pumunta sa China, magiging citizen ng China? Hindi. Pero maraming Pilipino ngayon, citizen ng US citizen. So tingnan mo, culturally, religious grounds, spiritual grounds, economic grounds, iba yung relation natin sa Amerika with that of China. So there is no need to compare those.
Last question, Dr. Montemayor. I don't know why we're focusing so much on China. There are other claimant countries in the disputed areas: Vietnam, Malaysia, Taiwan, Brunei. Are we going to cut diplomatic ties with all of those countries? Baka walang matira.
Hindi po, alam niyo po, iba naman tong ugali ng mga inchik. Tingnan mo na lang ang kagulangan. Dito na lang sa Pilipinas. Yung mga hindi masyado nagbabayad ng tax dito at saka konti binabayad, Chinese din. So, makikita, tingnan nyo wala naman taga Brunei dito na may kakilala akong businessman. Tingnan nyo, maraming claimant countries, totoo yan. Pero sino yung mahilig magkaroon ng incursion? Tingnan nyo yan. You look at the internal and also implied manifestation. No? Yung tandaan natin, maring ang isang tao, hindi niya sinasabi, pero ginagawa niya. So there are many things that are expressly shown. There are many things that are impliedly given. Kagaya ng China, 2 weeks ago, meron na namang incursion. Ano ibig sabihin yan? They are not respecting us. Now, pag kinat natin ang relationship, you should listen to us. Kasi sa susunod, we will do other things other than stopping or cutting the diplomatic relation.
Okay. Well, I hate to interrupt, but we've neared the 1 hour mark, and unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions. But Dr. Attorney Jose Montemayor, thank you so much. We will give you the floor for your closing remarks.
Maraming salamat po, mga kababayan. No? Magising na tayo. Tanggalin nyo lang yung false Asia at SW sex. Ano? Yun ba yan? I'm sorry, no? Ito namang false Asia at SW sex. Huwag na kayong maglabas ng inyong mga, alam mo, do not mind condition the Filipino voter. Tandaan nyo, mautak ang Filipino voter. Kayo ng mga politician, number 1 daw isa, number 2, the fight of colors, wala pong kulay ang pagmamahal ng Pilipino. Tandaan natin, we have to be united. Ang unang ano ko, hindi yung bumoto sa akin, but to be united in prayer for our nation. Maraming salamat po sa SMNI, the best platform for debate. Kaya po ako, nagpapasalamat ako. Actually, pinorse ko ang sarili ko dito. No? Hindi ako na-invite. Ano? Pinorse ko po, pero even with that, I still recognize that this is the best debate platform, SMNI. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Dr. Attorney Jose Montemayor, and to our panelists. Our candidate as a doctor and as a lawyer had to field different and difficult questions, including his stance on vaccinations, pork barrel, and the always difficult issue of diplomatic relations. Don't go away. Ang susunod natin na sasalang ay isang kandidato na dating Defense Secretary. Pangarap niya para sa ating bansa ang maging first world country. Alamin natin paano niya planong gawin ito. The Deep Road, the SMNI presidential candidates interview will be back.